It's time for my virtual Jericho with John Mayer.
Well, after the excitement of the Jericho boatyard decision last week, it's time to consider another huge Jericho building project. This one, though, will probably be built. It's the Stephen A. Schwartzman Humanities Centre in the Radcliffe Observatory Quarter off Walton Street. Today, it is nothing but a car park. You can see it is used by the university just as a car park. Mud and mounds and the remnants of a COVID testing laboratory. It's a prime site between the Vadnik building and the Mass building. One is very good, the other one not so good. In 3 years' time, you can expect to see a brand new building rising out of this mud. Let's have a look at what's planned. American entrepreneur Stephen Schwartzman has given £165 million of his personal fortune to build it. All the university's humanities departments will be on one site for the first time. It's the final piece in the missing jigsaw in the quarter. The plans have just been passed by City Council, and in just 3 years we can expect this brand new building. But in addition to this, from outside, you'll also inside see a concert hall and a 250-seat theatre, plus an 89-seat lecture theatre and film screening facility, a school engagement centre, and the Bake Collection of musical instruments. Jericho could become the new cultural centre of Oxford. The community will not be left out. According to Professor White, who is the lead on this project, for the first time in its 800-year existence, this is a building built by the University of Oxford, which is intended to be open to the public. Professor White, tell us more. Tell us about your dream.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you. As I'm encouraging my children to say, thank you for having me. So probably the best thing for me to do is just to talk a little bit about the project and to say to you the things that I said to the planning committee who approved it unanimously a couple of weeks ago. And I think there are three things that this building's doing, and you've just outlined them. I mean, the first thing that the building's doing, of course, is to be providing this academic space. So here we've got 7 departments, we've got 6 libraries, we've got, thousands of students and academics who are going to be using this place for their teaching and their research. And that's absolutely essential for us in the university. My colleagues are working in a series of sort of rather temporary expedient buildings. The music faculty's in a building there, I think the 3rd or 4th inhabitant. It wasn't built for them. It doesn't work for them. The history faculty is in the old boys' school on George Street. Again, it doesn't work. This is a building that's purpose built for the kinds of things that we need to do now. The second thing, as you just said, is that this is going to be we hope, a major cultural centre, so that the concert hall in particular is exciting. This 500-seater concert hall that's going to provide the kind of acoustic, the kind of environment that Oxford doesn't have. We did a lot of work in trying to find exactly the right size, exactly the right space, so that we can attract the very best musicians, and so that you can come and have a really good experience. I mean, the Sheldonian, I'm an architectural historian. I love the Sheldonian Theatre, but nobody would ever say that it was built either for the acoustic and much less for its degree of comfort. We're going to be able to offer that. And then the third thing that the building's going to do, and the thing that in a way holds together the academic side of the building and the cultural side of the building, is exactly that thing that you were just talking about, which is the fact that this is a building that's been built from the first to be open to the public, and in that sense is completely new. Lots of other universities have done it. Lots of other universities have created spaces that are civic spaces as well as academic ones. This is the first time the University of Oxford has done it. It's a really important move forward for the university. And to do those three things, to do the academic work, to do the cultural work, and to do the work with the community, it needed to do three things. And so the design is, I hope you'll agree, certainly the feedback we've had is that it's a beautiful building and is going to be a spectacular building, as you see from inside. The second thing is that it's an incredibly sustainable building. This is being built to passive house standards, the absolute the highest standards that you can build. And indeed, this will be certainly the biggest passive house building in Oxford, and probably the biggest passive house building in Europe, and possibly the biggest passive house building in the world. And then I suppose the third thing, and the thing that's really fundamental to it working, is that it's also going to be an accessible building. It's accessible in that everyone will be welcome to it. It's accessible in that it's got spaces for school children to come and experience life in the university. It's accessible in that it's going to be fully wheelchair accessible throughout. And so in that way, I hope it's going to be a real resource, not just for the university. I mean, it's going to be transformative for the work of the Humanities division, but really transformative for the way in which the university works with and serves the people of Oxford in general and the people of Jericho in particular.
Let's drill down a bit. What's in it for Jericho?
What's in it for Jericho? I think three things. And forgive my cough, as I was just saying, I'm just getting over COVID, and I seem to have gained a cough with it. I think what Jericho gains is this exciting cultural centre, which I think will be a tremendous resource and will be really, really attractive, and mean that this is on the doorstep of the people of Jericho. I think it's going to be a really useful space for the people of Jericho. I mean, the cafe is going to be open to everyone. It's going to be, I mean, we're registered with the Observatory Medical Practice. I mean, it'd be useful to have somewhere to go and wait either before or after an appointment, and that will be, we'll be able to do that. People will just be able to drop in and use it. And then the third thing, which I haven't mentioned but really is critical, is that the landscape around the building is being designed by a really important landscape design firm, by Gillespie's, to provide a series of kind of pocket parks for the people of Jericho, that's going to contribute really quite significantly to the greening Jericho, that project that's been going on that won an OPT award a year or so ago. And this is going to create those attractive spaces where the people of Jericho can go and relax and enjoy the outside.
24/7? Will it be open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day?
No, it won't be open 24 hours a day. It'll be open probably 9 to 9. Probably from 9 in the morning to 9 in the evening. It will be open certainly 6 days a week, possibly 7. I think that's the plan.
How are you going to stop ne'er-do-wells from using it as a place to hang out?
It's a big question. I mean, in a way, that's going to be a question that's beyond me. I'm just in charge of building the building. The actual management of the building is going to be in the hands of the Humanities division once I've finished it. What will happen is that there will be a great deal of security in order to make it a safe place. There will be receptions, 2 reception designed for it. There'll be CCTV surrounding it. We're also designing it, and I think there's an important question there about what happens after dark, after the building's closed. So we're doing a lot of work now with designers to ensure that the lighting of the building, that the lighting of the environment will leave people not only being safe, but really feeling safe in that environment. So it's important to stress that it isn't just that the building will be open to people 9 to 9. It's also the case that all the surroundings, that the two roads that go across the site will remain open. That will be public space, but it needs to be public space that feels safe. And so we've got people working. Indeed, I spent a happy 2 hours only yesterday with the lighting designers talking about the way in which it can feel like a safe place after dark.
And it's open to all and sundry, is it? I mean, the Bavadnik is not known that anybody can go and use the cafe. How will you make it clear that people can come in and use your space?
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not sure even I can get into the Blavatnik, and I'm employed by the university. I mean, it's you can look, but you can't touch with some of these glass buildings. Our building will. Well, I mean, I think there are a couple of ways in which that'll work. I mean, the first is that we designed it And I hope that will work. And we're designing the signs and we're designing all the stuff that will make it absolutely plain that this is a public building and that people are allowed in it. I think the second thing will be about the way in which people are welcomed. We're going to be doing a lot of work on how we can make sure that, unlike visiting some of the Oxford colleges or indeed some of the Oxford buildings where there's a kind of liveried flunky standing at the door who's going to try and turn you away. We're going to work really hard on having people that are going to welcome you to this environment and make people feel at home. And then I think the last thing is just about the way in which we're hoping to work with the people of Jericho and the people of Oxford more broadly from the get-go, from now, really, so that people become familiarized with the project, and once the building is open, so that we invite people in. A really important part of it is going to be the way in which this has this dedicated area designed for school children and for people to come and learn in this environment alongside the students and the academics who are there. And the children get used to coming here. Hopefully their parents will get used to coming here. Hopefully people will become aware, they'll become aware that the cafe is open and it's open to everyone and it's serving really nice stuff. So I think there's a thing about design, there's a thing about the people, and then there's a thing about the activities we carry on there. I mean, a really important thing is going to be making sure that this building is open. It won't just be open for academic events. There will be conferences going on, there will be teaching going on, but there's obviously also going to be something very important about making sure that we stage things in the concert hall, in that great hall that you saw with the dome above it, that we can do lots of things in there that'll just draw people in. And once people have been once, we hope that the experience will be so good that they'll come back again.
Will there be Jericho deals? Will there be a Jericho loyalty card? Will I get cheaper buns here because I live in Jericho?
This is a great idea. I will suggest it. I will suggest it to my colleagues who are indeed designing the catering strategy even as we speak. As you can imagine, this is an enormous building. This is an enormous project. This is the biggest building project the university's ever done. And so we have an absolute fleet of consultants, an absolute endless number of specialist committees looking at these various different things. I mean, design, just talking about it in a meeting just before, to get to that dome design, we've consulted with, my colleagues assure me, the 3 top dome consultants in the country, which is extraordinary. There are 3 dome consultants in the country. But, all of that work's being done, but I will certainly feed that in as an idea.
Now, you sailed through planning unanimously, from conception to planning permission has only been about 2 years. What's your secret in that?
I think a couple of things. I mean, one is that we have worked really, really hard to listen to the feedback that we've got throughout the process. So we've had scores of meetings with the officers from the City Council who've been immensely helpful in being honest with us about what needs to be done and listening to us about what we need to do. We've had meetings with Historic England, with the Oxford Preservation Trust, with the Oxford Civic Society, and with local groups, and all of these have been very, very helpful. And the feedback we got with the early kind of the various stages, we've had a lot of feedback, and we've listened really hard to it because we want this to be a community building and we want it to serve the people of Oxford. I think the other reason is that this is a real step change, as they say, in university architecture. I mean, I've spent the last 25 years of my life writing about university buildings and writing about the ways in which Oxford and other universities have created buildings that are designed to exclude. That's essentially what university architecture has been up till now. That's why we have big towers and battlements, and it's why we have gates that shut people out, and it's why there are signs everywhere saying don't go on the grass, don't look at this, keep quiet, and so on and so forth. And I think one of the things that we got in the discussion with the council about the city council about the planning application was a very clear sense that they were very excited by the idea of a building that's designed to serve the people of Oxford. And I think that's something that's fundamental to this project, and I think it's something they really appreciated, and it's something we're deeply committed to.
Right at the beginning, I compared you to the boatyard, which has been an ongoing planning saw for 17, maybe 20 years coming up soon. How come they didn't sail through and you have? I mean, what's your secret? What advice would you give them?
I mean, I can't talk about the boatyard. I mean, I should say, of course, that this has been a long time coming. I mean, the university acquired the site of the infirmary, almost 20 years ago. I mean, one of the first meetings I ever went to as a newly appointed lecturer in the history faculty was one to discuss the plans for the new Humanities building on the Radcliffe Observatory site, and that was before the credit crunch. That was before 2008. So we've been here before. Indeed, we got planning permission before. So it's not as though it's been unfeasibly easy. But I think that the way in which we've been able to work with partners in the city, and the way in which we've been absolutely central. It's been absolutely central to what we've been saying, is that we want to listen because we want this to be a building that's going to be of use to the people of Oxford, as well as being of use to the university. And indeed, actually, if it's not of use to the people of Oxford, it isn't of any use to the university. I think that has helped us. On the boatyard, I think it's best I don't trespass on private grief in that respect.
Somebody's asked a question about parking. 500 seater concert hall, where they're all going to park?
It's a very good question. I mean, parking is the fundamental question of all Oxford, as I know. There is no parking on site. There is, in saying that, there are 7 disabled parking spaces for people who are wheelchair users, but otherwise there is no parking on site. What does that mean in terms of parking? Well, partly the issue of parking is one that's going to be resolved by the city and county councils. I mean, Jericho, of course, already has parking protection. There's an existing question about whether cars are going to be able to come into the city centre at all. Our assumption is, and we've done a lot of work with, yet another consultant, or indeed several sets of consultants, on how people will be able to come to this place. Academics, professional staff, students overwhelmingly walk and use bikes, and we can show that. We've surveyed them. It's clear that's already the case, and indeed the assumption is that this is why we're providing the best part of 1,000 cycle parking spaces there, is that will only become more true. It's on a bus route that takes you out to the Park and Ride, Pear Tree Park and Ride, of course. It's also the case that it's within walking distance of the train station. There is parking in town, as you know. There's the underground car park at Gloucester Green. There's some parking on St Giles. So there is some provision of parking, and there is the possibility of people who have a blue badge being able to park more closely on the Woodstock Road at the moment. But essentially, this is a building that's designed to encourage its regular inhabitants to engage in the kind of active transport that we keep being told is good for us, and keep being told is good for the city. And for the rest, we would encourage people to use public transport to get there.
Now, will there be humanities buses? There is a science bus. Will there be a bus coming from the station and other places?
Not that I know of. I mean, the science bus is, as I understand it, and I'm not a scientist, I should make that clear. As I understand it, the science bus is to take people out to the outlying, perhaps the outlying is the wrong word, but to non I was going to use the word non-central, and that again could offend people. To take people to places that are not central Oxford. So the science bus takes scientists out to Whiteham Woods, where there's a research centre. It takes them down to Culham. It takes them out to the Old Road campus. It takes them up to the Begbrook campus up there. So that's what that's for. We don't think there'll be a need for a special bus service, but again, it's something. And our plans assume that there isn't going to be one. But I mean, if it turned out that there needed to be one, then that's just something we'd have to factor into. We'd have to factor into the plans.
Now, it'd be remiss of me not to ask about money. How much is it going to cost?
So the building couldn't be built without the donation that we've received of £175 million by Stephen Schwartzman. And that's the basis on which the building's being built. It's the single biggest donation the university's ever received, which is going to enable us to build the biggest building the university has ever built.
Mm-hmm. And is that the total cost?
No, the cost is somewhat in excess of that.
Right, and Schwartzman, what's in it for him? Somebody's asked a question online. What's in it for him?
What's in it for him? Well, I can't really speak for him. I mean, when the founder of Royal Holloway College was asked why he was founding Royal Holloway, he said, he quoted a founder of an American university who said, give money to universities, and it's better than building a pyramid. These are universities, they go on forever, and so that means you'll be remembered forever. Whether or not that's why he's doing it, I don't know. I think there are a couple of reasons. I mean, he is a very, very generous benefactor to the world of learning more generally. So he has given money, equivalent amounts of money, to Yale, to MIT, to the New York Public Library. He runs this big scheme in China, the Schwartzman College there, which functions a little bit like the Rhodes Scholarships, but in China. So he has a sort of tradition of giving money to educational foundations, and particularly for educational foundations that were working in areas that he's excited by as an individual. And he is excited by the idea of Oxford providing this cultural centre, providing this excellent environment for music and for drama and for dance. And he's also excited, and this is something I haven't talked about, but it's worth noting, is of course that one of the big developments that the Schwartzman money has enabled us to do is to found a new centre for the study of ethics in AI, which will be housed in the Humanities building, and which is really showing the humanities, the way in which the humanities isn't just about studying the past or just about preserving things. It's also about the ways in which the humanities ask fundamental questions about what it is to be human. And ethics in AI is a particularly interesting example of that, as we think, what is our relationship with artificial intelligence? What are the ways in which artificial intelligence might reproduce existing problems of human society, or even make them worse? What should be the moral boundaries of artificial intelligence? I mean, at what level do we let artificial intelligence make decisions about who should be in prison, who should get an operation? All those kind of major ethical questions. And that's something he's clearly very interested in. And I think all that's sort of joined together. And the thing that makes this such a really extraordinary project is that we are living in a period in which the humanities, so the study of the arts, the study of literatures, the study of thought for its own sake, the study of history, which is my own particular field, all of these can seem a little bit under threat. They can seem that, the real money goes into what's called STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, that, these practical subjects, these things that are obviously monetizable, they seem like the obvious growth areas, the obvious areas in which you might want to invest. And what's so remarkable about this benefaction is that Mr. Schwartzman has said, well, look, I can see that Oxford does the humanities really well. I can see that the humanities is an area that needs support, and I can see that the humanities can speak to pressing, urgent, current issues. And so that's, I think, the main driver for him, and that's why one of the flagships elements of the project is the Ethics in AI Institute.
What's the process of extracting 175 million pounds? A man whose fortune is 38 billion at the end of February. How do you persuade somebody like that to part with some money?
Oh, I mean, I can't. I should say, I should say that that's the work of, my vice chancellor. It's the work of our development office. It's the work of a team of people who've been involved in talking to him, as well as the team of people that support him in his foundation and all his many charitable giving things. I think, to talk in general, the way in which you persuade people to part with their money is to persuade them that what they're going to be giving is something that's interesting, it's something that's going to work, and it's something that's really going to make a difference. And in this case, I think this building does that. This building is clearly going to be transformative for the work of the humanities in exactly the way I've talked about. It provides us with facilities that we haven't dreamt of having, ever really. I think it's clearly a building that's going to be, that's going to be providing all kinds of interesting things, all sorts of things we haven't even thought of will be made possible by this building. So that you're going to see, I hope, colleagues able to put on performances of previously unperformed plays, or colleagues who are going to be able to work with groups of artists or performers in ways that they haven't done before. It's going to enable, particularly in my own field in history, we're doing an awful lot of work now in community history, and the way in which this building will enable us to bring people in. And the way in which the humanities in general, Oxford in general, is seeking to widen the range of people who come and study with us, to show people from schools that don't traditionally send people to Oxford that actually this is a place for them. That's all going to be possible because of that building. And I think the last way in which it's going to change things is the way I began with, which is to say that, we've made it very clear to him that we see this as a building that's actually going to help change the university, and it's going to change the university by making the university much more open than it's ever been to the wider population of the city, which is something, we're really committed to doing. And we're committed to doing it because it's a good thing to do. And we're committed to doing it because, in fact, the ways in which the humanities have been changing over the last 20 or 30 years is precisely to sort of try to abandon that sense that, what academic research is about me sitting in my room reading my old books and then telling people what I think and laying down the law from some ivory tower. And ever more, it's about us listening to people outside the university and engaging in what, the co-production of research. And that's transformative, not just of the institution, it's transformative of our work intellectually. And I think, we were able to persuade him that was something worth doing and worth committing to.
Now, Oxford has a minor problem at the moment with naming of buildings. I mean, roads, of course, and then this lot, of course, the Sacklers. The Sackler Library may have to be renamed, and there will be others. Did that worry you at all, the reputational damage from having a name like Stephen Schwartzman attached to it?
No, I mean the university has very very complicated and very arduous process by which all potential gifts are vetted and all potential donors are vetted, and that's the process of due diligence that's been done. I mean, I don't have any anxieties about Mr. Schwartzman, and the process was run. the money has been given and the planning permission has been given. So this will be the Schwartzman Centre forever.
Some people said perhaps you should have accepted this money. I think the biggest piece of dirt they could find, he was a friend of Donald Trump's.
I think if one looks, because he's a successful American businessman, he has been the friend of every president, or every president has wanted to be his friend over the last 20 years, if not longer. So I think he is the sort of person who knows presidents.
He didn't like Obama. He was one of Trump's advisors, but he wasn't very fond of Obama. But so no qualms at all about accepting this money. No feeling you might have to give it back or later on change the name of the centre.
No, none at all. None at all. The university, as I say, has this very, very exacting process of assessing this. We are one of, as I said, half a dozen major universities across the world who've accepted money from Mr. Schwartzman, and all of whom expect that their buildings will continue to be named the Schwartzman Building for eternity. As I say, the great attraction of giving money to universities is precisely that universities endure.
Do you expect to be principal of the new building, the Schwartzman Centre? Is that your?
No. The head of the building, there are probably two things I should say. The actual running of the building and the actual running, particularly of the cultural program, will be in the hands of a cultural program director, who we're seeking to appoint at the moment. We will be advertising very soon for that job, for somebody who's going to be able to hold together all these different elements, really, really top-notch, first-rate kind of musical performances, and the kind of public engagement, the kind of work with the community and with young people that we're going to want to do, and all the stuff they're going to be doing with the academics. So it's going to be a really interesting job, and a really remarkable individual will need to do that, not just to be absolutely first rate, but also able to work with academics who are, and I can speak as an academic, not always the easiest people to work with, and to work with the wider community in a way that's going to make the artistic program work, the cultural program as we're calling it work. The division, as it were, the humanities division, which brings together all of us who work on the arts and humanities, is headed by a head of division who is not, thank God, me, but Professor Daniel Grimley, and Dan is a musicologist and a fellow of Merton College, so he will be in charge. I am solely responsible for overseeing the actual building process. I've made a career out of writing about university buildings, and my first book was on the architect of the exam schools, amongst other things. And the exam schools were the single largest building the university had ever built when it was built in the 1870s. And I've taken on responsibility now for the successor building, which is the humanities building. But once that is done, I will return to my books and I will continue with my research and my teaching.
So you're like an executive clerk of the works, then essentially. You're pushing it through.
Yeah, I'm what's called, the university rather grandly calls me the senior responsible owner of the building, and I'm not quite sure what that means, but actually it means I'm the client, really. That's what I do. I'm the client, and advised by a great team of people within the university, and as I say, this fleet of consultants, and working with the architects, Hopkins, and working with our contractors, Lang O'Rourke. My job is to just make sure that what gets built is what we want to be built, and that it fulfills all the ambitions that we draw up for it right at the start.
Let's talk to your builder if you can, the man from Lang O'Rourke. What are the problems going to be of building this, and how will we notice it? Will we see lots of lorries with sand coming down Walton Street?
Hello, or good afternoon, and to introduce myself, my name's Steve Holland, and thank you for the opportunity to join you today. Problems, I think the aspect to draw upon is I've been honoured to be able to work and deliver projects at the ROQ for the last 10 years, and just recently completed biochemistry around the corner. In terms of the excavation processes, yes, there are excavation processes, but that's from a maturity of experience of delivering basements across a vast number of schemes in the last 20 years in Oxford.
So this building will be built in 3 years, so it'll be open in September 2025, correct? That's pretty fast, isn't it?
It is absolutely at pace, and I think that's a really akin to the method by which we're engineering to deliver the project. As William said, there's a real core here in terms of the purpose of the project, its sustainability and its public benefit. So we need to be mature in the modern way by which we deliver such architecture and engineering. So key aspects of the project will be manufactured off-site in the East and West Midlands respectively, such that when we can consolidate the volume of deliveries considerably to Oxford, we can manufacture as many aspects as possible and keep then such movements of transportation and people down to a minimum for the benefit of the residents, to reduce the risk and problems, as you just mentioned, and also to make sure in terms of the carbon reduction accordingly.
So when will it all start? When will we start to see a difference in Jericho?
Starting to see a difference. Our project facilities were on that previous plot, and so from delivering the schemes there, I think in fact one of your photographs that you showed at the earliest stage of today was actually our project office where I've been. That's been my indeed, there we go, my home from home as such, from when I was delivering maths and the listed buildings just to the north there, and the refurbishment there. So you'll start to see a difference as through this summer, we need to enable the project. And that's all the basics aspects of doing the project hoardings, and to make sure the safety and the logistics are implemented through this summer ahead of the construction activity commencing in autumn. And it's all about the knowledge that we've learned together, how we've delivered in Jericho and the Radcliffe Observatory Quarter, to get all of those plans in place through this summer, ready for the main works activity to commence in the autumn.
And then it'll be 2 years of solid building, will it, to achieve this?
Yeah, sure. So the main aspect you'll see is in terms of in the first year is mainly associated with the basement construction. And then as we've seen with obviously interaction with Jericho residents previously, we're very much hidden behind the hoardings in many regards. We will do similarly from what we've done in terms of vision panels, and we're really keen to engage and communicate all the various stages, because we'll be kind of out of sight behind the hoardings and going 2 stories down. It's then in a year or so's time where we suddenly start to pop up as the structure suddenly emerges from behind the hoardings, and we have the honour of then starting to clad it with the wonderful architecture and design of the building, and really then bring it to its physical life prior to William and colleagues moving into it.
Will you be employing that wonderful Chinese artist again, who did some superb drawings of your first phase?
Yeah, some awesome drawings, and there's a number of them still there, and we had them on the project hoardings, didn't we, in an earlier stage. So I'm not sure if he's still in the area, but absolutely we'd be really keen to engage in a similar way to what we did with the local school children and the art competition that we did and ran for, again, to bring some of the hoardings to life. To get that, we're really keen on that interaction.
He's still there now. Jesus shows the way, and that's not me being religious, but if you go to Jesus College, or indeed to Walton Street, to the old health centre, the hoardings tell you a story. How are you going to tell a story outside of this?
Yeah, that's something that Jennifer, William, and myself are working on at present in terms of the design and thoughts and ideas for communication for the next few years during the delivery of the project. So absolutely, yes, watch this space.
Jennifer, Jesus shows the way. How are you going to follow Jesus' way?
Well, the hoardings outside Jesus College are fantastic and really do tell a story. And we are being inspired by not only their hoardings, but by some of the others that we've seen on projects within Oxford. We're actually we have a bit of a group right now that's working to design those hoardings so that when they go up, they will have a life of their own and tell a story and evolve over the life of the project as well. And we definitely want to, as Steve said, engage the local community and make sure that it's not just something that we're saying outwardly, but also that we're listening and we're engaging and hopefully getting some schools involved and maybe some involvement through Torch and the programs that they run. So watch this space. There's going to be some exciting stuff on the hoardings.
Have you seen the Lucy hoardings in Walton Street
I have those. I have seen the ones
outside the
on.
health centre? Which tell a story.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
Lucy.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that the ones that you were mentioning that Wayman had done those wonderful images in the past, and the university has got a great history of putting some interesting stuff so that people can feel that they're a part of the building before the building has been opened.
Yeah, the other thing that Lucy do is they've opened the site in Cranham Street, so you can see the building happening. Is that planned as well?
We definitely want to have some opportunities for people to see into the site. It might not necessarily be as open because we definitely need to make sure that our site manages the noise aspects for our neighbors, and hoarding helps us do that. But we definitely want to make sure that people can see in because it's an exciting process that we are fortunate enough to be a part of, to actually be behind those hoardings and see the building evolve. But we want people to take an interest as the project develops. And we're also looking at how we can do that digitally and make sure that people get the updates as to the progress of the project as it's happening.
Across the way from this new building, there's a relic of the old RO's Radical Observatory Quarter. Next to the health centre, there's a very ugly building. You know the one I'm talking about. Is there
I
any
do.
plans to get the cracking ball to knock that down?
Not immediately. The university does want to develop that plot, and it does consider that another key development opportunity. The Gibson and Harkness buildings have been there for quite some time, and they have served a purpose. And we recognize that the future of that plot is likely to be different from where it is now. So we're looking at options and opportunities, and looking at how it is that can offer further academic opportunities for the university.
What about the porter cabins opposite the health centre? Are they permanent?
No, those are temporary. We installed those. I'm sure, as you recall, when we had the Tinbergen building that we needed to evacuate. We took a decision that we would provide some very high quality but temporary facilities on the ROQ for some of the academics in experimental psychology. Those have a 5-year planning permission, and the intention is that that site will also be developed in the future. And those academics are due to go into the new Life and Mind building when it's completed in 2024-25.
So they're up for another 2 years, correct?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they obviously need to have the time to move out of that building once it's completed. But yes, the planning permission has only been temporary for the duration that it's taking us to build the Life and Mind building.
And moving you around a bit to St Paul's Church and Freud's, which I personally think is a disgrace, the state of it. Any plans for that?
Well, as you know, the Freud's is not part of the university ownership. It is obviously a very important historic building, and it's a great asset to the community. But the university doesn't have any plans for that as it's not part of the university estate.
Let me throw an idea at you. The Hindus in Oxford are looking for a temple. Why don't you convert it into a mini temple?
Well, that could be an interesting idea, but it's not for the university to decide what would happen on the Freud site.
Do you own the site, or does it owned by
No, the
Freud?
site isn't. Yeah, the site's not owned by the university. It's owned by the Freud's family.
So it's the
as I
one piece of
understand
the
it.
jigsaw that you don't have. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. We do not own that estate.
But back to William. William, what difference
Hmm.
is it all going to make? What's Jericho going to be like in 10 years' time? Will I be able to afford to live here?
Oh gosh, I mean, in terms of what Jericho is going to be like, I mean, I, the best thing one can say about these things is, as a historian, is that I'm not a good predictor of the future. So years ago, I contributed to the 4-volume history of the university press, Oxford University Press. It was very important. It was 4 volumes because Cambridge University Press was 3 volumes, and I wrote about the evolution of Jericho there over the last century. And the striking thing about Jericho over that period, and you know this as well as I do, is that Jericho has transformed in ways that could not have been predicted even a decade before. So I mean, thinking about the the Lucy site, thinking about St Paul's Church, thinking about the way in which 100 years ago Jericho was an industrial suburb, and then it suddenly becomes not just an industrial suburb. It's identified in the 50s and the 60s as a slum area that needs to be cleared, and and then suddenly it becomes a very, very desirable place. Whereas somebody observes about 30 years ago, you're more likely to encounter an author than anything else. There's somebody who writes in the mid-90s. If you shouted out your window walking down, in Walton Street, author, how many heads would turn? So Jericho is a difficult place to predict. What will be the impact of our building on Jericho? Well, if it works, as I hope it will work, what it will help do is to sustain the cultural life of Jericho and to help draw people in to Oxford who otherwise mightn't come here. The lack of this concert hall, the absence of the facilities we've got, all of those things are things that threaten Oxford in some respects. This is a period in which the centres of towns are challenged. They were already challenged before the pandemic. And now, with increasing numbers of people working at home, they become ever more problematic potentially. What will save, and Historic England did an excellent report about 5 years ago, what will preserve cities like Oxford will be the cultural life that they can sustain and the way in which they draw people in. And this will be an important building to do that for Oxford. And for Jericho, what this will do for Jericho is, as I say, I hope sustain the cultural life around it so that people will come for concerts and then go to have drinks, Little Clarendon Street, Walton Street, eat out in either of those places, and also be a place that will help sustain community life in Jericho. What the effect of it on property prices will be, goodness only knows.
No. Yes, this is the Daily Telegraph question. What are
the Daily Telegraph question? I mean, what's striking is the fact that property prices just rise in Oxford anyway. Our building won't have any effect on that. What's interesting is that there are houses being sold outside Oxford. We were shown one only the other day in the countryside outside Oxford that have already identified the new Humanities Centre as one of the draws to come and live in Oxfordshire. This is one of the things that you might want to include on your list if you're Savills selling a big country house. I think more importantly for us is the fact that it's going to help contribute to the cultural life of Oxford and help musicians, in particular the musicians of Oxford, to find new venues that they can use, and in that sense, actually sustain that life.
But people have said that you can't claim to be the cultural centre when they've got the Sheldonian and other places like it which put on music concerts. How do you react to that criticism?
It's entirely true. I mean, what we are is a part of the cultural life, a part of the cultural ecosystem of Oxford. I think that's really important to stress, is that the reason that we've chosen this model in which we have a 500-seater concert hall, we have this 250-seater space that can be used for theatre as well as lectures, where we have these interesting avant-garde performance spaces, the black box experimental performance lab not least, is that what this does is to provide a series of venues that don't exist in Oxford at the moment. And in that sense, we're contributing to an already quite diverse ecosystem. So we're not going to be challenging, this is not going to be challenging the Playhouse. The Playhouse will continue to do its thing. The new theatre will continue to do its thing. We will be adding something new. How do we relate to the existing provision in the Sheldonian and the Holywell? Well, in two ways. One is that we are bigger than the Holywell. The second is that we are more comfortable than the Sheldonian. More importantly, what the Sheldonian and the Holywell Music Room can do is to offer very, very beautiful historic environments. What we can do is to offer the only state-of-the-art acoustic environment, which is being tuned and designed by Arup Acoustics, who are the leading figures in all this, to produce absolutely the perfect acoustic for that music, for the musical repertoire we can house there. And so that's what we're contributing. It's not that we're replacing anything, it's that we're adding something new to what's already a very vibrant and very exciting world of music and drama in Oxford. But we've worked really hard to produce an environment that's going to contribute by being just designed in a way that nothing else has ever been.
Now, bring it down to the micro level. If I'm the headmistress or headmaster of St. Barnabas Primary School in 2025, what can I get from you? What can I put on our Christmas nativity play there? Can I put on little concerts there? Is there the room for that?
I don't know. It's a very, very good question. So, I mean, in terms of what we'll be doing to work with the people of St. Barnabas, I mean, hopefully, as Steve was saying, we're going to be working with them during the process of construction, even before the building exists. So, we'll be sending people in from the construction team to talk to the children. We'll be bringing them to see the site. We'll be asking them, hopefully, if they'll agree to design elements that'll go up on the hoardings. And once the building's open, obviously they'll be able to come in with their families and have eat in the cafe, have a snack in the cafe. They'll be able to play in the gardens around it. They'll also be invited into the Bate Musical Collection, which is really fascinating, really esoteric, well, not esoteric, really special, surprising collection of musical instruments that the university has, and which isn't as well known as it should be. They'll be invited in to do work with the schools.
Is that the one in St Albans next to the police station?
That's the one under, exactly, it's the one under the music faculty. It's a completely amazing collection of musical stuff, which will be moving to the main entrance just on the ground floor to the north of our building, and will be much more publicly accessible as a result, where you can see everything from Handel's harpsichord to squeakers that were purchased at St Giles Fair, and various other things in between, where you can play a theremin, which is not something you get to say very often at all. So that will be there. There'll be the schools and engagement space. There'll be things that are staged for the community. In terms of what facilities will be available to the public to put on work, well, again, we don't want to replace the Playhouse, which already does an awful lot of that work. But our artistic director will be working with the community to work out in what ways we can share this, in what ways this can be used, so that the people of Jericho directly benefit.
Now, I know you're a historian, a builder, and an estate planner. Use your imagination. What will Walton Street in Jericho be like in 10 years' time? All three of you.
Gosh, shall I start? I have the least good idea, because I mean, the two people you're going to talk to Jennifer and Steve, are people who actually build things and think about the future, whereas I write about things and think about the past. I think it all hinges, everything hinges on bigger questions about the future of Oxford. There's a big question about the livability of Oxford. There's a big question about whether you can get from one place to another in Oxford. There's a big question about the role of cars in Oxford. There's a big question about who can afford to live in Oxford. And all of those are going to have an effect in Jericho itself. What do I think we will be doing? How will we relate to it? Well, I think Walton Street will become part of what's an expanded cultural quarter of Oxford, so that it will be, it will be linked through our building to the wider world of Oxford, and linked through our building to the bigger world of international music. And that, what effect that will have? Well, hopefully that will have only a good effect on the businesses of Walton Street.
And will you be in the ZEZ, or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I think we. It's very hard to know, but I think we will be. Jennifer will have a clearer sense of that than me.
Jennifer, will you be in the ZEZ? And what's your dream for the area around your building?
Oh gosh, that's quite the question. I believe that the zero emission zone will come quite close. I'm not sure whether we actually will fall into it in the future, but I know that there still is a lot of talk about that in terms of bus gates, etc. Um, I think that one of the things that we can say about the local community is that it's a very strong and vibrant community, and we're hoping that that is only going to continue to be so, and that this will only enhance that. And I think that you get a fantastic mix of students and young professionals, families, people of all ages and walks of life that live in the Jericho community, and I'm sure that our building will serve that community very well, and I hope that that's what it is that will continue to thrive in Jericho going forward.
Steve, any dreams for Walton Street and the whole area in 10 years' time?
I think where times are changing are in terms of the designers, the owners, and the people who deliver the projects is around, as you said, around emissions, around sustainability. People are repurposing how buildings are used and are adapting those buildings to reflect those dynamics of society. That's how it'll change. I think people are getting a bit more streetwise in terms of how existing buildings can be reused, and that will adapt to what Jericho needs.
All right. Thank you all very much. If you can see all three of them, thank you, Phil. A very interesting hour. We'll come back in a year's time and we'll see how it's all getting on. Meanwhile, it's now time for the commercial break. The Oxford Indie Book Fair is on this Saturday in the Methodist Church in Newen Hall Street. Please come along. Lots of poor independent publishers like me flogging their wares. It's open from 10 till 5, all there. And there is a literary festival at the moment as well. The next My Jericho is a question time on the 13th of April. These can be quite lively. A panel of 4 people, 4 locals, discussing local issues. Tune into that. All My Jerichos are on YouTube, live and recorded. Then on Sunday, the 24th of April, in Mount Place, the new central area for events in Jericho, I'm putting on a lazy Sunday. There'll be music from canal boats. There'll be sausages. There'll be beer. There'll be stalls galore selling pottery, selling books, and we're hoping maybe we might even stretch to canal cruises as well. So come along to that. It's the 24th of April, Lazy Sunday, and it's on the last Sunday of every month, right through till September. And then 2 big names come to Jericho on the 28th of April. Gina Miller, she who put Boris Johnson's feet to the fire twice and took the government to court over Brexit and overreach on Parliament. She took the government to the court and she won twice. She'll be coming to St Barnabas on Thursday, 28th of April at 6:30 to talk about her new political party, which is called the Truth and Fair Party. And she may also talk about the B word as well, as Jericho tends to remain central. It'll cost you a £5. The money will go towards getting the church clock to tell the right time. we've got it working, but it hasn't quite got it till in the right time. And then on the 5th of May, John Simpson, the BBC's World Affairs editor, if he's not in some war zone, talking about the world today, a sort of semi-formal lecture about the world being a very dangerous place. John is an Oxford resident. That again is £5 a person, with a donation which goes to the church clock fund again. Let's get the clock fund going. And finally, these things, nothing is free in this world. My Jericho costs money. It costs money for websites, for MailChimp, all those hundreds of emails you get from me, and plus various other things. So if you'd like to help keep My Jericho going, and perhaps the University Humanities faculty would like to sponsor it, here's the details. Lloyds Bank, sort code 139626. The account number is 48518460, and the account name is Jericho Good Works. So that's Lloyds Bank, sort code 139626. The account number is 48518460, and the account name is Jericho Good Works. And please, any amount. Somebody sent me 6p the other day, but a couple other people have sent me 100 quid. This series has now been going My Jericho for 6 years, in and out, and virtually and not. So let's keep it going if we can. But meanwhile, next week there's no My Jericho, but the week after it'll be My Jericho question time. Thank you all three, and good night and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Yoo-hoo!